The whiskey glass sat untouched on the scarred table. Jacob Red Thornhill hadn't taken a drink in 3 years. Not since the day he buried his gun belt and swore he was done with killing. His weathered hand rested on the head of Kaiser, his German shepherd, whose amber eyes tracked every movement in the Copper Ridge Saloon. Red watched the scene unfold like he'd watched 100 others in his 72 years. 4 ranch hands from the Kendrick spread, drunk and mean, had cornered Sarah Mitchell against the bar. The young waitress clutched her serving tray like a shield, fear bright in her eyes. Her father had died 6 months ago. She was alone in the world. "Please, just let me work," Sarah's voice trembled. The biggest one, Colt Mercer, grabbed her wrist. "You'll work when we say you work, sweetheart." The other patrons looked away. The bartender suddenly found his glasses needed polishing. Nobody challenged the Kendrick crew. Not anymore. Not since they'd beaten Tom Harris half to death for looking at them wrong. Kaiser's low growl rumbled through the floorboards. Red's jaw tightened. He'd promised himself no more violence. He'd left that man behind in a dozen graves across 3 territories. But some promises, Red realized as he slowly stood, weren't meant to be kept. Kaiser rose beside him, a shadow of loyalty and teeth. Together, they'd faced worse. And together, they'd face this. Well now, settle in close, friend. What you just heard was the moment everything changed in Copper Ridge. An old gunslinger named Red Dalton and his faithful companion Kaiser, a German shepherd who's seen as many fights as his master, sitting quiet in a saloon while bullies terrorize an innocent young woman. But here's what you don't know yet. How a man who swore never to kill again, and a dog who understands his master's heart better than any human, are about to remind this town what real justice looks like. I'm Hank Wilson, and I'm mighty glad you're riding along with me today. This is a story about loyalty, redemption, and the bond between a warrior and his 4-legged brother-in-arms. If you're enjoying this tale already, do me a kindness. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Red and Kaiser stand up. And drop a comment telling me what country you're watching from. I love knowing where my listeners gather. Now, Red Dalton thought his gunfighting days were behind him. Kaiser thought their quiet life was permanent. But sometimes, fate has other plans. The question isn't whether they'll fight, it's whether the Blackwell crew will survive what's coming. Let's find out together. 3 years of peace had softened Red's trigger finger, but not his instincts. He'd chosen Copper Ridge specifically because it was quiet, a mountain town where nobody asked questions about the scars on his hands or the way he always sat facing the door. Kaiser had been a pup when they'd met, abandoned outside Fort Collins after his handler died. Red saw something of himself in those intelligent amber eyes. A soldier without a war, lost and looking for purpose. They'd been inseparable ever since. The Copper Ridge Saloon had become their afternoon ritual. Red would nurse a sarsaparilla while Kaiser lay beneath the table, head on paws, watching the world go by. Sarah Mitchell always brought Kaiser a bowl of water without being asked. She'd smile that shy smile and thank Red for his patience when the lunch rush got busy. Good people were rare. Sarah was one of them. That's why Red's blood ran cold when Colt Ransom and his crew swagger in at 2 o'clock, already drunk from somewhere else. The Blackwell ranch hands were known troublemakers, sons of wealthy ranchers who thought their father's money bought them immunity from consequences. Colt spotted Sarah immediately. "Well, look here, boys, our favorite little waitress." Red's hand found Kaiser's head. The dog's muscles had tensed, every sense alert. They'd developed a language beyond words over the years, a touch, a glance, a subtle shift in breathing. Kaiser knew his master was troubled. "Easy, boy," Red whispered, "not yet." But even as he said it, Red knew. This wouldn't end peacefully. It never did with men like these. Sarah tried to serve them, professional despite the leering, but Colt had other plans. He grabbed her wrist when she set down their whiskey, pulling her close enough that she stumbled. "You're prettier when you smile, Sarah. Why don't you smile for us?" Please let go." Her voice stayed steady, but Red caught the tremor underneath. "I'll let go when I'm ready." Colt's friends laughed, ugly sounds that echoed off the wooden walls. The bartender, old Pete Morrison, opened his mouth, then closed it. The other patrons studied their drinks with sudden fascination. Red understood their fear. The Blackwell family owned half the county. Sheriff Drummond was in their pocket. Standing up to them meant losing your livelihood, maybe worse. Red had spent 3 years becoming invisible, just another old-timer nursing his regrets. But watching Sarah's fear, feeling Kaiser's controlled fury vibrating through the floorboards, Red felt something stir that he'd thought was dead, the cold certainty that had made him legendary 40 years ago. Some men needed killing, some women needed protecting. The math was simple as arithmetic. Kaiser's growl deepened. Red's hand moved to the dog's scruff, not restraining, just connecting. They'd been in tight spots before, a mining camp in Colorado where 5 men jumped them in an alley. A river crossing where claim jumpers thought an old man and a dog would be easy pickings. Those men had been wrong. These would be too. Red caught Sarah's eyes across the room. She saw him, really saw him, for the first time, and in that moment, she understood. Help was coming. She just had to hold on a little longer. "Kaiser," Red said softly. "Watch." The dog's ears pricked forward. They both knew what came next. Colt Ransom shoved Sarah hard against the bar. Her tray clattered to the floor, tin cups scattering across wooden planks. The sound cut through the saloon like a gunshot. "Clumsy?" Colt sneered. "Maybe you need lessons in how to treat customers right." His hand moved toward her face. That's when Red stood. The scrape of his chair drew every eye. Red Dalton wasn't an imposing figure at first glance. 72 years old, weathered as drought-cracked leather, shoulders slightly stooped from decades of hard living. But something in the way he rose, the careful deliberation of movement, made hardened men pause. Kaiser stood with him, 90 pounds of muscle and loyalty, lips curled back just enough to show teeth. "Son," Red's voice carried despite its quiet tone, "you're going to let the lady go." Colt turned, sizing up the old man with contempt. "This ain't your business, Grandpa. Sit back down before you get hurt." "Can't do that." Red's eyes were pale blue ice. "See, I made a promise to myself 3 years ago. No more violence, no more killing. Thought I'd earned some peace." He took a step forward. Kaiser moved with him, synchronized. "But watching a coward put hands on a woman, that breaks my promise for me." Colt's 3 friends spread out, hands near their holstered revolvers. The calculation was obvious. 4 young men against 1 old-timer and a dog. Easy odds. Red had seen that calculation before. It was always wrong. "You got 10 seconds to apologize to Miss Sarah and walk out that door," Red continued. "After that, Kaiser and I will show you why smart men leave peaceable folk alone." Colt laughed, but it sounded forced. "You threatening us, old man? You know who we work for?" "Don't care if you work for the president himself. Time's wasting. You're at 7 seconds. Something in Red's tone made Colt hesitate. The old man's stance had shifted, balanced, weight distributed, hands loose at his sides. This wasn't some doddering grandfather. This was something else entirely. Kaiser's growl had gone quiet, which somehow made it more menacing. The dog's focus was absolute. Amber eyes locked on Colt like a predator measuring prey. "We'll break you in half," one of Colt's friends blustered, but his hand shook near his gun. 3 seconds. Sarah had pressed herself against the bar, eyes wide. Pete the bartender had ducked down behind his counter. The other patrons scattered toward the walls, clearing space. 2. Colt's bravado cracked. He'd heard stories, suddenly remembering. An old gunfighter who'd settled here years ago. Read something. They said he'd killed 30 men. They said he'd been faster than lightning back in his day. But that was 40 years ago. This was just an old man. 1. Colt drew his revolver. It was the last mistake he'd make that day. Red's hand moved with speed that defied his age. Not a draw, but a strike. His palm cracked across Colt's wrist, sending the gun flying. In the same motion, Red's other hand grabbed Colt's shirt, yanking him forward and down. Kaiser launched at the nearest friend, 80 pounds of snarling fury. The man went down screaming, dog's jaws clamped on his gun arm. Thunder rolled through Copper Ridge. The storm had begun. Red drove his knee into Colt's stomach, folding the younger man like a newspaper. 3 years of peace hadn't eroded 40 years of learned violence. It had simply banked the fire. Now it roared back. Colt tried to swing wild. Red caught the fist, twisted, and Colt howled as his arm bent wrong. Not broken. Red still had enough control for that, but close enough to teach respect. Kaiser released his target's arm and wheeled toward the second man, reaching for his revolver. The German Shepherd hit him chest high, jaws snapping inches from his throat. The man froze, gun half drawn, staring into amber eyes that promised death. "Don't," Red advised without looking. Kaiser's been patient, but he's got a temper when folk threaten his family. The man dropped his gun like it burned. The fourth ranch hand, younger than the rest, backed toward the door with hands raised. "We don't want trouble, mister. We're leaving." "Smart." Red shoved Colt toward his friends. "Take these two with you." Pete emerged from behind the bar, whiskey bottle gripped like a club he'd never had courage to use. "Red, the Blackwell family won't let this stand." "Let them come." Red's voice carried iron certainty. "I'm done hiding from bullies." Sarah remained pressed against the bar, breathing hard. Her eyes found Red's, gratitude and something else. Hope, maybe. The kind that came from realizing you weren't as alone as you'd thought. Kaiser trotted back to Red's side, tongue lolling in what looked almost like a grin. The dog's tail wagged once, mission accomplished. Red knelt, checking Kaiser for injuries. The dog's teeth were fine, no blood in his mouth, just good training and better restraint. "Good boy," Red murmured, scratching behind Kaiser's ears. "Proud of you." The dog leaned into his master's touch, the violence already forgotten. This was their language. Protection followed by affection, danger followed by peace. They'd always taken care of each other. Colt struggled to his feet, cradling his wrist. "You're a dead man. Your father will hear how you laid hands on a woman and got handled by an old-timer and a dog." Red's smile had no warmth. "That'll do wonders for your reputation." The truth hit Colt harder than Red's strikes. The story would spread. He'd be laughingstock by sunset. "Get out," Pete ordered, finding courage now that the danger had passed. "And don't come back to my establishment." The 4 ranch hands limped toward the door. Colt stopped at the threshold, turning back with eyes full of poison. "This isn't over." "It is," Red replied. "Unless you want a repeat lesson. Next time, Kaiser might not be so gentle." The German Shepherd barked once, a short, sharp sound of dismissal. The men fled. Silence filled the saloon. Then, slowly, patrons began to emerge from cover. Someone laughed nervously. Another clapped. Within moments, the whole room erupted in applause. Red waved it off, embarrassed. He walked to Sarah, Kaiser at his heel. "You all right, Miss Sarah?" She nodded, tears streaming. "Thank you. I thought, don't think about what might have happened. Think about what did." Red's expression softened. "You're safe. That's what matters." Sarah dropped to her knees, hugging Kaiser. The dog accepted it with dignified patience, tail wagging harder. Red watched them, old heart warming. Some things were worth breaking promises for. Red knew trouble would come. It arrived 3 hours later in the form of Sheriff Drummond, a thick-necked man whose badge fit poorly over his expensive vest. Behind him stood Marcus Blackwell, patriarch of the Blackwell Ranch, and his oldest son, Daniel. Red sat at his usual table, Kaiser beneath it. He'd known they'd come, had even ordered a coffee to have something to do with his hands when they arrived. "Red Dalton," Sheriff Drummond's voice carried false authority. "Need to talk about what happened here today." "Nothing to talk about. 4 drunks bothered a lady. I suggested they leave. They left." Red sipped his coffee, calm as Sunday morning. Marcus Blackwell stepped forward. He was 60, steel-gray hair and eyes that calculated profit in every interaction. "My son says you assaulted him without provocation." "Your son's a liar." Red met his gaze without flinching. "He put hands on Sarah Mitchell. Ask anyone here." Pete polished the same glass he'd been working for 10 minutes. "Red's telling it straight, Mr. Blackwell. Your boys were out of line." "I didn't ask you," Marcus snapped. He turned back to Red. "My family has been patient with you, Dalton. We let you settle here despite your history. But attacking my son crosses a line." "He crossed it first." Daniel Blackwell, younger and harder than his father, leaned on Red's table. "You broke Colt's wrist. Doc says he might not regain full use." "Could have broken his neck," Red observed. "Showed restraint." Kaiser's growl rumbled from beneath the table. Daniel jerked back involuntarily. The dog's reputation was growing alongside his master's. "Control your animal," Sheriff Drummond barked, hand on his revolver. "He is controlled," Red replied softly. "If he wasn't, you'd know." The room's temperature dropped 10 degrees. Everyone present understood the subtext. Red Dalton could unleash holy hell if provoked. The question was whether the Blackwells were stupid enough to provoke it. Marcus's jaw worked. He was a businessman, used to buying solutions. Violence was messy, expensive, but backing down publicly would cost him something money couldn't restore: fear. His empire ran on the understanding that Blackwells didn't lose. "Here's how this resolves," Marcus said finally. "You leave Copper Ridge, tonight. Take your dog and disappear. In exchange, we forget this incident happened." Red laughed without humor. "Or what?" "Or we make your life very difficult. The sheriff here will find reasons to arrest you. My ranch hands, 30 of them, will make sure you understand your mistake. That dog of yours might have an unfortunate accident." Kaiser's ears flattened against his skull. The threat against him reached Red in a place beyond reason. "You just made a mistake," Red said, voice dropped to something ancient and cold. "Threatening me I can handle. Threatening Kaiser?" He stood slowly. "Now we got a problem that can't be solved with talk." Daniel's hand moved toward his gun. Kaiser exploded from beneath the table, placing himself between Red and the threat, teeth bared in a snarl that raised every hair in the room. "Easy, partner." Red's hand found Kaiser's head, gentling him. "Not yet." But the message was clear. Push further, and blood would spill. The Blackwells could see it in the old gunfighter's eyes. A man who'd killed before and would kill again to protect what he loved. Marcus Blackwell stepped back. "You've got 24 hours. After that, we come for you both." They left like a retreating storm, full of thunder, but no lightning. Yet. Sarah appeared at Red's table as sunset painted the saloon in amber light. She carried 2 plates, steak for Red, bowl of scraps for Kaiser. "On the house," she insisted when Red reached for coins. "Can't accept charity, Miss Sarah." "It's not charity, it's payment." She sat uninvited, hands folded on the table. "For what you did. Nobody's stood up for me since Papa died." Red cut his steak, uncomfortable with gratitude. Any decent man would have done the same. But they didn't. Sarah's voice carried steel beneath the softness. They sat there and watched. You and Kaiser were the only ones with courage. Beneath the table, Kaiser demolished his scraps with enthusiasm. The sound made Sarah smile despite everything. "I heard what the Blackwells said," she continued, "about you leaving. Thinking on it." "Don't!" The word came out fierce. "Please, This town needs someone who'll stand up to them. I need... She trailed off, but Red understood. Sarah needed to know that monsters could be faced, that bullies could bleed. Her father had been killed in a mining accident 6 months ago. At least, that was the official story. Red suspected the Blackwells had been involved, covering up something that might have cost them money. I'm 72 years old, Red said gently. I can handle myself, but I can't take on 30 ranch hands and a corrupt sheriff. Math doesn't work. So you just run? The challenge stung. Red had run before, leaving towns when his past caught up. Always easier to vanish than fight. But something in Sarah's eyes, that desperate hope, made running feel like cowardice. Kaiser emerged from beneath the table, resting his chin on Sarah's lap. The dog's judgment was clear. She was Pack now. Pack didn't get abandoned. There might be another way, Pete called from the bar. He'd been listening, obviously. In a small town, privacy was illusion. Blackwells have enemies, folks who'd stand with you if someone led the charge. Red doubted it. Like who? Me, for starters. Pete set down his polishing rag. I'm tired of paying protection money to keep this place running. Tired of watching them terrorize anyone who crosses them. They'll burn your saloon down. Maybe, but I'd rather lose the building than my self-respect. Others began to speak up. Tom Harris, still healing from his beating, limped forward. I'll stand with you. Owe them Blackwells some payback. Maria Rodriguez, who ran the boarding house. They've been trying to force me to sell for half value. I'm in. One by one, the citizens of Copper Ridge stepped forward. Not all. Fear kept many silent, but enough. A dozen people willing to fight. Red looked at their faces. Shopkeepers, laborers, widows. Not soldiers, not gunslingers. Just ordinary people who'd been pushed too far. This'll get bloody, Red warned. The Blackwells won't back down peacefully. Then we'll meet blood with blood, Tom Harris said. You teach us how. Red glanced down at Kaiser. The dog watched him with those amber eyes that understood everything. They'd found something in Copper Ridge they'd been searching for without knowing, a place worth defending, people worth protecting. All right, Red said finally. But we do this smart. The Blackwells have numbers. We'll need strategy. Sarah squeezed his hand. Thank you. Kaiser barked agreement. The War Council had begun. Red spent the next morning turning Pete's saloon into a war room. A rough map of Copper Ridge spread across a table. The Blackwell Ranch to the north, town center here, escape routes marked in charcoal. Kaiser lay beneath the map table, head on paws, watching Red work. The dog had seen his master like this before, focused, calculating, becoming the man he'd been 40 years ago. A tactician who'd survived dozens of fights by thinking 3 moves ahead. The Blackwells will come at night, Red explained to his assembled allies. Maximum intimidation, minimum witnesses. They'll expect us scattered, scared. We'll be neither. Tom Harris leaned forward. How do we fight 30 men? We don't. We fight smart. Red tapped the map. We fortify 3 positions, the saloon, Maria's boarding house, and the general store. Create crossfire angles. Make them come to us on our terms. They've got more guns, Maria observed. Guns don't matter if you can't hit what you're aiming at. Most of those ranch hands are cowboys, not fighters. They've never faced real resistance. First volley, half will run. Red distributed assignments. Pete would coordinate saloon defense. Maria would handle the boarding house. Tom would take the general store with 3 others. What about you? Sarah asked. Kaiser and I will be mobile. Hit them where they don't expect, pull their focus. Red's smile was grim. Remind them why smart men don't corner old wolves. They spent hours practicing, loading rifles, taking cover positions, creating supply caches. Red taught them the basics. Breathe, aim center mass, fire when you see the shot. Most importantly, don't hesitate. Hesitation killed. Midday, Daniel Blackwell rode into town with 6 men. a show of force meant to intimidate. They stopped in front of the saloon, Daniel's sneer visible through the window. "Dalton, time's up! Come out or we drag you out!" Red walked to the door, Kaiser beside him. He didn't step outside, kept the threshold between them. A statement, "You come to me." "Thought I had 24 hours. Plans changed. Father decided to accelerate the schedule. Daniel's hand rested on his revolver. "You leaving, or do we make you leave?" Red's eyes scanned the 6 men. Young, confident, probably never been in a real fight. They thought intimidation and numbers would carry the day. "Tell your father I'm not going anywhere," Daniel laughed. "Then you're a dead man." "Maybe, but I'll take company with me when I go." Red's tone stayed conversational. "Starting with whoever draws first. Kaiser here will take the next. That's 2 of your 6 before your friends even react. You like those odds?" Kaiser growled on cue, the sound vibrating with promise. The ranch hands shifted nervously. This wasn't going like they'd expected. "Tonight," Daniel said, backing his horse, "we come in force. Last chance to run, old man." "I'll be here." They rode off, dust trailing like a coward's excuse. Red watched them go, already calculating. Daniel had revealed the timeline, tonight. That meant they had 8 hours to prepare. "Everyone heard that?" Red called into the saloon. "We heard," Pete confirmed. "Then let's get to work. Kaiser, heel." The dog fell in beside him as they walked toward the boarding house. There were defenses to strengthen, angles to improve, and a very specific plan forming in Red's mind, one that would turn the Blackwell's numbers against them. Tonight would answer a simple question. Could an old gunfighter and his dog protect a town? Red had faced worse odds before, but never with so much to lose. They came at midnight under a waning moon. 30 riders with torches, confident and cruel. Marcus Kendrick led them, flanked by Daniel and Colt, the latter's wrist wrapped but his pride demanding vengeance. Red watched from the saloon's second-floor window. Kaiser sat beside him, ears forward, reading the night. Below, Pete and 4 others crouched behind overturned tables, rifles ready. "Too many," Pete whispered. "That's what they think." Red scratched Kaiser's ears. "But we're about to change their math. Ready, boy?" Kaiser's tail wagged once. Always ready. The Kendrick riders stopped in the town square, torches turning night into flickering orange chaos. Marcus's voice boomed, "Red Thornhill, last chance! Come out and we'll let the town stand." Red opened the window. "How about you come in and we'll show you hospitality?" His answer was a volley of gunfire. Bullets punched through walls, shattered windows. The saloon defenders returned fire, measured shots that forced the riders to scatter. "Phase 1, Red muttered. He slipped down the back stairs, Kaiser ghosting after him. They emerged into the alley behind the saloon, moving through shadows toward a predetermined position. The Kendrick men had dismounted, taking cover behind watering troughs and hitching posts. Exactly as Red predicted. They focused on the 3 fortified buildings, never thinking about flanks. Red raised his rifle, aimed at a torch, not a man, fired. The torch exploded, showering sparks. Horses panicked, rearing and bolting. Half the Kendrick men broke ranks, chasing mounts. Kaiser melted into darkness, circling around the far side. Red heard the dogs bark, sharp, directional, drawing attention away from the defenders. Always the distraction, always the edge. Daniel Kendrick shouted orders, trying to restore organization. "It's just one old man. Find him." 10 men broke off, searching the alleys. Red led them on a chase through narrow passages, firing from unexpected angles, never staying still. Kaiser harassed from another direction, appearing, barking, vanishing before they could react. The coordination between man and dog was perfect, refined over years of trust. When Red needed a distraction, Kaiser provided. When Kaiser needed backup, Red appeared. They were one consciousness in 2 bodies. From the boarding house, Maria's group opened fire. From the general store, Tom's defenders added their voices. The Kendrick men found themselves in crossfire, unsure where to focus. Their advantage of numbers evaporated into confusion. Colt Mercer stumbled into an alley, revolver drawn, searching for Red. He found Kaiser instead. The German shepherd emerged from darkness like vengeance itself, not attacking but blocking the exit, teeth bared in a silent promise. Colt backed away, terror overriding bravado. He'd seen what those jaws could do. "Good boy," Red called from behind. "Let him run." Kaiser stepped aside. Colt fled, gun forgotten, screaming for his father. One by one, the ranch hands broke. The promised easy intimidation had become a nightmare of shadows and snapshots, and a demon dog who seemed everywhere at once. Marcus Kendrick rallied his remaining men, maybe 15 now. "The saloon! Burn it down!" They charged the front entrance. Pete's defenders fired, dropping 2. But the rest broke through, torches raised. That's when Red and Kaiser entered through the back door. Red's rifle spoke 3 times, precise, economical. 3 torches extinguished, 3 men down. Kaiser launched at the nearest, driving him into furniture with an impact that shattered chairs. The saloon became chaos. Fists and furniture, growls and gunshots. Red fought like a man half his age, every movement efficient, learned from decades of survival. Marcus Kendrick found himself facing the old gunfighter, torch in one hand, revolver in the other. "This ends with you dead, Thornhill." "Maybe," Red admitted, "but you're coming with me." Kaiser circled behind Marcus, cutting off retreat. Trapped between man and dog, the cattle baron finally understood. He'd brought his men to fight a legend. The fight ended not with violence, but with math. Marcus Kendrick, staring into Red's eyes with Kaiser's teeth inches from his leg, did the calculation every businessman understands. Cost versus gain. "Stand down," Marcus ordered his remaining men. "All of you, stand down!" The ranch hands, battered and terrified, lowered their weapons. The saloon fell silent except for heavy breathing and Kaiser's low growl. "Smart choice," Red said quietly. "Now here's how this ends. You and your family leave Copper Ridge alone. No revenge, no intimidation, no accidents. You run your ranch, we run our town, and never the twain shall meet." "You can't enforce that," Marcus spat, but his voice lacked conviction. "Can't I?" Red gestured to the wreckage. Kendrick men groaning on the floor, others fled into the night, the family's reputation shattered by one old man and a dog. "Your men know now. You're not invincible. Push us again, they'll remember this night. They'll remember fear." Daniel, bleeding from a cut above his eye, helped his father stand. "This isn't over." "It is," Sarah spoke from the doorway, holding a shotgun with surprising confidence. Behind her, the townspeople emerged, shopkeepers, workers, families, armed and united. "Because if you come back, it won't be Red and Kaiser you face. It'll be all of us." The truth of it settled over the Kendricks like a shroud. They'd lost more than a fight. They'd lost the fear that kept their empire running. Without fear, they were just men, mortal and vulnerable. Sheriff Drummond, who'd arrived too late to participate, stood helpless. His allegiance to the Kendricks couldn't survive this public defeat. The Kendricks left at dawn, loading their wounded onto wagons. Marcus didn't look back. Neither did his sons. Pride demanded silence. Red watched them go from his usual table, Kaiser's head resting on his lap. The dog's tail thumped contentedly against the floor. They'd protected the pack. The work was done. Sarah brought coffee, real coffee this time, not the chicory substitute. "On the house," she insisted. "Forever on the house. Can't accept." "Yes, you can." She sat beside him, exhaustion and joy mixing on her face. "You gave us something we'd lost, hope. The belief that bullies can be beaten." Pete emerged from the back room, surveying the damage. Broken furniture, bullet holes in the walls, whiskey spilled across the floor. He laughed suddenly, surprising everyone. "Best night this saloon ever had." The townspeople drifted in, checking on each other, celebrating survival. Tom Harris clapped Red on the shoulder. Maria kissed his weathered cheek. They'd faced hell together and emerged intact. "What now?" Sarah asked. Red scratched behind Kaiser's ears, feeling the dog's warmth, his steady breathing. They'd planned to keep moving, never settling, always one step ahead of the past. But Copper Ridge had become something they'd never expected to find. Home. "Now," Red said slowly, "I think we stay, if that's all right with you folks." The cheers answered that question. Kaiser barked his approval, tail wagging harder. Red smiled, a real smile, unmarked by regret or sorrow. For the first time in 72 years, he wasn't running from his past. He was building a future, with his town, his people, and his best friend beside him. The old gunslinger and his German shepherd had found their last stand, and it was exactly where they belonged. Well, friend, we've reached the end of another trail. Red Thornhill and Kaiser proved something important tonight, that courage isn't about age or numbers. It's about standing up when standing up matters most. It's about loyalty between a man and his dog that runs deeper than blood. You know what I love about this story? It's not about the gunfight. It's about that moment when Red and Kaiser looked at each other and knew, without words, without doubt, that they'd fight together. That's the kind of bond that makes legends. Sarah Mitchell got her town back. Pete got his pride. Tom Harris got his revenge. But Red and Kaiser? They got something better. They got a home. If you enjoyed riding alongside Red and Kaiser, hit that like button for me. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And drop a comment. Tell me what country you're watching from, and tell me about your own loyal companion, whether it's got 4 legs or 2. Until next time, remember, the strongest weapon isn't a gun or a fist. It's the loyalty between true friends who'll face hell together. This is Hank Wilson, tipping my hat to you and your faithful companions. Keep riding, friend.